Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to the Practical English Learning Program again. I'm in the classroom teaching active and passive voice to my students. First of all, there's gonna be a sort of introduction to active and passive voice. And then we're gonna talk about some rules to be followed before we change voice into passive voice, or active sentences into passive sentences. So first of all, what is voice? Voice here doesn't mean, like somebody's talking or somebody's singing a song and you say, I like, your voice, or I don't like your voice. Voice doesn't mean sada or jah or raj here, okay? Voice is a grammatical term which indicates whether the subject of a sentence is the doer of action or the receiver of an action. Voice is a grammatical term, which indicates whether the subject of a sentence is the doer of action or the receiver of action. Understood?
Yes.
Now, what is active voice? If the subject of a sentence is the doer of action, that's active voice. If the subject of a sentence is the doer of action, that is called active voice. Okay? For example, he paints a wall. Okay? Every week or every day, or he paints a wall every week. What is our subject here? He. What is our main verb? Okay. Paints, right? And what is our object? Wall. The reason we say it is active voice because the subject of our sentence is the doer of this action. Subject is the doer of this action and object is the receiver of this action. When we change this sentence into passive voice, the subject of your sentence, according to grammatical structure, becomes the receiver of the action and not the doer of the action. When you want to change an active voice, a sentence, into a passive voice sentence, the object of the active sentence becomes the subject of your passive sentence. So here we go. A wall. Okay? And after that, we need a to be verb, according to the tense and according to the subject. Which tense is this? Simple present tense. So our to be verbs in simple present tense are is, am, are. Which to be verb should we use? Is, because awal is a singular subject, third person singular subject. So awal is. The main verb should be changed to third form or past participle form. Okay, in all 12 tenses. Now it's just the introduction, and later on we're going to be practicing, active and passive voice in all 12 tenses, okay? So in all 12 tenses, the main verb should be changed to past participle or third form. It could be in base form or ing form or second form, but it should be changed to third form. So, awal is painted. The third form of paint is painted because it is a regular verb. Okay? And after that, we bring the preposition by, and subject becomes object of preposition, or in other words, an agent of by phrase. Okay? By him. So, he paints a wall every week, and a wall is painted by him every week. Look, active voice. If the subject of a sentence is the doer of action, it is called active voice. If the subject of a sentence is the receiver of an action, it is called passive voice. In the second sentence, the subject, according to the grammatical structure, is a wall, and it is not the doer of the action, but it is the receiver of the action, and that's why we call it passive voice. Okay. Some rules to be followed. The main verb of our active sentence should be transitive or double transitive. And if the main verb of a sentence is intransitive, we can't change that sentence into passive voice. So now, what's the difference between transitive verbs and intransitive verbs? Okay? Now, if a verb takes an object directly, or in other words, if the meaning of a verb is not completed without an object, that is a transitive verb. For example, if we say she drinks. She drinks. If we stop it here, the meaning of this, I would say it's a sentence because subject plus verb, but does not give a complete meaning. So she drinks what? We have to mention something. She drinks tea or coffee or water or what? Okay? So she drinks water. Look, when a verb takes an object directly, and it does not give a complete meaning without an object, that is called transitive verb. Now, drink here is what kind of verb? Transitive verb. Now, when you want to change an active sentence into passive sentence, the main verb of that sentence should be transitive. Or double transitive. We're going to talk about that later. Okay? Some verbs can take two objects. So that is called double transitive. Now, this kind of sentence can be turned into passive voice. So, object becomes subject of the passive sentence. Object of the active sentence becomes subject of the passive. Water. And then we need a to be verb according to the tense and according to the subject of the passive sentence. Water is. And then main verb should be, to third form should be changed to third form or past participle. And the subject becomes object of preposition, so by her. Subject of the active sentence becomes object of preposition by. This preposition is very common in passive voice sentences, okay? However, there are some other prepositions which can be used in passive sentences too. But we're going to talk about those prepositions later. So, water is drunk by her. She drinks water, water is drunk by her. Now, if I write something, for example, she cries. What do you think about this? She cries every day. She cries a lot. Does this verb need any object? No. Without taking an object, it gives a complete meaning. She cries every day. She smiles. Okay? And if there is object, that is object of preposition, which means, there should be a preposition and then object, okay? For example, if you bring a sort of adverb of time or time expression, so that cannot be the object of, the main verb, because object should be a noun or object pronoun, okay? So she cries a lot. So what is a lot? She cries a lot. It is not a noun, it's not a pronoun, okay? Yeah, she cries a lot. It is, I would say adverb of quantity, sort of, okay? Or you say she, for example, cries every day. She cries every day. So again, adverb of frequency or adverb of, yeah, so I mean that cannot be the object because object is the receiver of an action. Understood? Or, for example, right now, she's crying. She's crying right now. She's crying, okay? So it doesn't need any object. Look, transitive means passing over. It means a transitive verb doesn't stay with the subject. It passes over and joins the object. Intransitive means not passing over. It means it stays with the subject. It doesn't need an object. Understood? If you want to bring, for example, an object, let's say here I say, he runs. He runs every morning. He runs a lot in the morning, for example. I can bring a sort of time expression, but I cannot bring an object. Can we say he runs the road? Does it make any sense? No. It doesn't make any sense, right? Why? Because this verb cannot take an object directly. So if you want to bring an object, you need a preposition before that object. He runs on the street or on the road, right? Okay? Let's say he runs on the road. So the road is here object of preposition, according to grammar. Understood? Okay. So this kind of sentence cannot be changed from active form into passive form. And if somebody says the road is run by him, doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, right? So now, the main verb of your active sentence should be transitive. If it's intransitive, that sentence is not changeable from active form to passive form. However, there could be some exceptional cases, okay? Now look. Sometimes some verbs take two objects, okay? And those verbs are called double transitive verbs. For example here, he sent me a book. See, this verb takes two objects. Me, okay? Indirect object. What kind of object? Indirect object. And a book is direct object, okay? So it takes two objects. We can change this sentence from active form to passive form, okay? So now, according to the rules, whatever object comes first after, main verb, that should be the subject of your, passive sentence. So here, I was, simple past tense, okay? I was sent a book by him. However, in many languages, we cannot put the kind of idea in this way, but in English it's common, and I would say it's somehow like, spoken and informal. But the formal way, if you bring, for example, the indirect object first, he sent a book, then you need a preposition, okay, to me. He sent a book to me. Again, two objects, a book and me, okay? The person in this case is direct, indirect object, and the thing is direct object, okay? So now, book becomes, the subject of your passive sentence, a book. In simple past tense, so we need the to be verb was, and it's singular, subject.
Yeah.
So we need was, a book was sent to me by him. You can also say a book was sent by him to me or to me by him. Both of them will be correct. So now the main verb of your active sentence should be transitive or double transitive. If it's intransitive, that sentence cannot be changed from active to passive form. Next, the main verb of your active sentence should be an action verb. The main verb of your sentence, of your active sentence, should be action verb, okay? Because there are exceptional cases, and I'll give you one example, and inshallah in the future we will practice those exceptional cases, okay, a lot. For example, it's not common among native speakers to use non-action verbs or stative verbs, okay, in passive form. I like you, you are liked by me. I need a marker, our marker is needed by me. See?
Yeah, it's
You know why? Because these verbs are not action verbs, okay? Okay? For example, if you say, however, I mean, they are transitive verbs, they take objects directly, okay? You say, I need a marker. So a marker is the object of the main verb need. It is transitive, but it's not action verb, and therefore it's not common to change that kind of, sentence from active to passive form. Understood? Okay. However, there are some exceptional cases. I want to give you one example, okay? For example, if you say, I know him. No. It's also a stative verb. It's also a non-progressive verb. Okay? Or a stative verb. A verb which shows a kind of state, not action. Okay? But as an exceptional case, we can change it and we can say, he is known to me. Yes, in this case we use a different preposition. Instead of by, we use to. Understood? So it's one of the exceptional cases. In English language, we most of the times we have exceptional cases, okay? I hope you got it, okay? So now you know that when you practice, you try to change the kind of sentences whose main verbs are transitive, number one, and number two, action verbs, okay? After you practice a lot and you gain the ability to change the sentences which are changeable from active to passive form first, then later on you can go on and do some, research and find out more about, exceptional cases and stuff, right? Or you can ask your teacher about exceptional cases. Understood? But for now, this much is enough. Just keep these points in mind while changing active sentences into passive sentences. On specific subject, if the subject of your active sentence is not a specific person or thing, you don't need to mention the by phrase. For example, someone broke the chair yesterday. Someone broke the chair yesterday. The chair was broken yesterday. You don't have to say by someone. Understood? Why? Because someone is not a specific subject. If you say Ahmad broke the chair yesterday, then you can mention the by phrase that the chair was broken by Ahmad. People speak English in many countries. People speak English in many countries. English is spoken in many countries. You don't have to say by people. Understood? Why? Because that's not a specific subject. Understood? If the subject of your active sentence is not a specific person or thing, you don't have to mention the by phrase. Understood? Okay, next. If the subject is not a person, if the subject of your active sentence is not a person, something happened because of a disaster, because of a sickness, because, okay? For example, COVID-19 killed a lot of people in the world. Is COVID-19 a person?
No.
No. So in that case, instead of by, we should use the prepositions because of or due to. Okay? Due to is more formal, because of is more commonly used in spoken English, and due to would be somehow more formal, right? A lot of people were killed because of COVID-19 or due to COVID-19. See, the subject of our active sentence was not a person, okay? Kabul city was destroyed because of the civil war. The civil war destroyed Kabul city. Kabul city was destroyed because of The Civil War, or due to the Civil War. Understood? If the subject of your active sentence is not a person, okay? In that case, instead of by, preposition by, you may use because of or due to. Understood? So by means tawassuti or bazariya po wasila in part. In because of, by lati basababi, right? Okay. So for example, if the subject of your active sentence is, something like a sort of disaster, for example, hurricane, or a flood, for example, or earthquake, or for example, let's say tornado, okay? A flood destroyed many houses in our province yesterday. A flood destroyed many houses in our province yesterday. Many houses in our province were destroyed because of a flood. Due to a flood. Don't say by, okay? Understood? Or for example, a storm destroyed a lot of crops. A lot of crops were destroyed or damaged because of a storm. I hope you got this point. And finally, perfect progressive tenses in written English. You can change active sentences in all tenses in spoken English. Okay, you can change active sentences into passive sentences in all 12 tenses in spoken English. But in written English, do not change the kind of sentences from active form to passive form if the tense is present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, or future perfect continuous. Understood?
Yes.
In written English, it's not common to change, active sentences in these tenses. In perfect progressive tenses. Understood? Perfect progressive tenses. It's not common in written English. In spoken English, it's okay. You got it? Yeah. So it was all about the introduction of active and passive voice and some rules to be followed, okay? Now, if you got any questions, feel free to ask your questions. As soon as I answer your questions, we're gonna be done with this part. And in the next video or clip, we will be practicing active and passive voice in all 12 tenses. In all 12 tenses, okay? I'm gonna change one sentence from active form to passive form in all 12 tenses. In all forms, affirmative, negative, interrogative, negative interrogative, in information questions. You got it? Or we may work on information questions later on, because that is a kind of complete lesson, because there are a lot of different cases when you use who as a subject and who as object, and when the word which is followed by a noun because it functions as interrogative adjective. Okay, so we're going to work on that later, but for now we will work on 12 tenses. Understood?
Yeah.
Any questions here?
So the 5-1, if the subject is not a person,
Yeah.
you gotta confuse with this one. Yeah.
Oh, don't be confused. Most of the times your preposition is by.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
The letter was written by Ahmad. Okay. The water was drunk by me. Okay. So by plus object. But if the subject is not a person in your active sentence and you want to change that into passive sentence, then instead of by, use one of these two prepositions. For example, war. War. War is not a person, right?
Yeah.
You can say, the Civil War destroyed our country. The Civil War destroyed our country. Our country was destroyed because of the Civil War. Don't say by the Civil War.
Yeah.
Understood?
Yeah, yeah.
Or due to the Civil War. Understood? You got it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions? So okay, we're done with this part, and inshallah we'll be working on changing sentences from active form to passive form in 12 tenses, okay? Yeah, bye-bye. We're done with this part. Have a great time, everybody.
با فراگیری زبان انگلیسی در اتاراد، اهداف اکادمیک و مسلکی خود را تعقیب نمایید.